very much, Sonia, and good morning, everyone. My name is Dino DiMarco. On behalf of the Royal Bank, I want to thank ACCES very much for giving us this opportunity to talk a little bit about how to successfully market yourself to the financial service industry. Before we get started, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. As hopefully you can all see the logo that's behind me. I'm going to do a little bit of advertising for them. I've been in the financial service industry, come this July, it'll be about 36 years. In various roles, mostly in the retail banking side of it. And retail banking is that branch that you see at the corner. And so on. I've managed branches, I've managed teams and so on. We've grown branches, we've closed branches, we've done a whole variety of different things. So I've had some good experiences under my belt. In regards to my academic background, I graduated post-secondary from Seneca College and York University with my degree. I am an associate of the Institute of Canadian Bankers, a certified financial planner, personal financial planning, the branch compliance officer. I am able to also sell certain securities as well. Over the 36 years, as we go through this marketing plan, I hope to share some of my personal insights, some of my personal background and my experiences that'll help and contribute to you putting together a marketing plan for yourself, specifically addressed to the financial service industry. And I hope these insights will add value to that career path that you are embarking upon. So let's get started. Our next slide. A marketing plan. What is your personal marketing plan? I'm sure you have all heard businesses and organizations put together a marketing plan. Well, you and I as individuals in our career goals also have a marketing plan. We are marketing ourselves. We have to promote ourselves. We have to position ourselves. We have to make people aware of what we bring to the table. Just as a manufacturer or a business promotes their product, their service, their value proposition, we have to do the exact same thing. And what I hope to do, as we discussed, is I want to give you some insights on how to do that and specifically tailor it to the financial service industry. I looked up one of the definitions of marketing in one of my old business textbooks, and it basically said, marketing is a social and a managerial process by which individuals and groups obtain what they want and need through creating, offering, and exchanging products, services of value with others. Very long technical definition. The bottom line is, it is how I make ourselves available, you and I make ourselves in demand, and the way you and I bring value so that we can be successful in achieving our employment goal and contributing to a potential employer's bottom line and their ultimate goal. So, next slide, please. The importance of this marketing plan. It's important to have a plan, any type of plan, in life and in business. It is a roadmap. We have to know how to get to a place before we can actually get there. Just as a map directs us to a certain goal, to a certain destination, the purpose of a marketing plan or a plan per se does and acts as the same type of instrument in helping us achieve that goal. And ultimately that goal, whether it be personal or in our case, in our career, is to be employed, and specifically to be employed in the financial service industry. It helps us structure our presentation, our methods, our techniques that we're going to use in achieving that goal. A good plan helps your customer, which is your employer, basically understand the product, which is you and I, to better understand how those two come together and melt into one cohesive unit. So we're satisfying a need on both parts of it. It's a strategic document. It helps us focus the resources that we're going to use, how we're going to use it. It positions us, how we're going to position ourselves, how we positioned ourselves in the past and something didn't work, so how we have to position ourselves in the future. And it's not a fact that, well, okay, I've put this plan together, I've started executing on it and so on, and it just sits there. No, it's a living, breathing document. It's a living, breathing process. Just as in a map, the topography changes and the map has to be changed. Well, the industry that we're applying into or the industry that we're interested in, it changes. And the scope of the change is so rapid. Our marketing plan has to continue to change and adopt and so on. The elements don't change. It's the way that we apply the elements and how we apply the elements that change. If we can go to the next slide, please. I'm sure you've all seen this before in business and so on, the SWOT analysis of yourself. Before we can embark on the journey, before we can put a plan into place, before we can even execute on some of the activities that we think and hope are going to make us successful, we've got to do an analysis of ourselves. We've got to determine certain things that need to be strengthened, certain things that are going to provide us with opportunities, certain things that we know we need to work on, which we call weaknesses. I don't really like that word, but it's areas that we have to expand on. The opportunities also that exist in the industry that we're looking for, and some of the threats. So, as a business does a SWOT analysis, you and I do a SWOT analysis. Our strengths. Now, the difference between a business and ourselves is the business is doing it on its product. You and I are doing the strengths on us. We are the product. So what are your personal strengths? Again, when you're looking at this, you want to keep it in the context of the positions that you're looking for in the financial industry. So what are the strengths that you bring to the table that are going to help you be successful in obtaining employment in the financial service industry? So what talents do you bring to it? What are your people skills, your communication skills, your interpersonal skills? How strong, or what is my strength in building those relationships, in communicating my value to my customers, to my employer, to my colleagues? Again, it's the strength and how you bring that strength or how you possess that strength that's going to set you apart. Weaknesses. First of all, the very first basic one, do we have the educational requirements? Now, don't get me wrong. The technical educational background is very, very important. It's not the end all and be all, but it is very, very important. The one area that we find is a very, very beginning on the educational part is, are you licensed in a particular province and so on to sell a particular security? Do you have your license to be able to sell mutual funds? Do you have your financial planning designation? Do you need to get that? And so on. So you want to take a look at that. Your experience. Now, with this one, you've also got to be a little bit careful. Do you have the experience in the financial service industry? Do you have the experience in dealing with people? Do you have Canadian experience? This is a bit of a weakness, but there are ways, which we'll talk about later, how you can take those weaknesses and convert them over into an actual strength. But you've got to be realistic and honest with yourself, because unless we identify any weaknesses that we may possess, that we are not able to address them if we don't identify them. But once we identify them, we can then begin to address them and overcome them. Opportunities. The Canadian banking industry is probably one of the safest in the world. The opportunities are abound in this industry. It's changing. The opportunities, the structures of those opportunities are changing as banking changes. But there is ample opportunity in the Canadian banking system. One of the fastest growing sectors of the Canadian banking system is the retail sector. Now, I said my experience has been in retail. When you think of retail, you think of the local branch. Well, it's expanded besides that. The opportunity with digital capabilities, virtual capabilities, retail banking now involves this brand new tool called the internet. It's used extensively. So that falls under the retail banking. Huge opportunities. This is the fastest growing part of all of banking. There are other opportunities with banking, wealth management. And as a matter of fact, under the retail umbrella, wealth management is one of the fastest growing areas. There is a huge amount of wealth that's being transferred over as the baby boomers pass on and so on. Large amounts of money is being transferred to the next generation. And a recent survey of Canadians basically says that about 80% of them feel that they are much more successful when they seek professional financial advice. So the opportunity is definitely there. When you think of the opportunity on the in other aspects of banking, they do exist as well. There's commercial banking, there's capital markets, huge international banking. As the Canadian banks gain more and more strength, we are worldly respected. We are really expanding internationally as well. Some of the more technical sides of banking there are also opportunities, not as much and a little bit more difficult, but in audit, accounting, administrative. So that does exist. Some of the threats. We have to be aware of some of the threats that our industry faces, and conversely, in the same token, what we then have to be prepared for. So we have to know what threatens these opportunities. One is competition. Who is your competition, and what is your competition? The industry is dramatically changing. Who we thought would not be competitors now are competitors. What we thought we had certain control over, as regulations change, other parties are coming into the financial service industry and they present threats. They present threats in that if we don't adopt, or if the financial service industry does not adopt in the way they deliver their products and services, they have the likelihood of losing market share, losing. Well, what does that have to do with me? It is the exact same thing for you and I. As competition comes into play, individual, as Canada expands, new Canadians are coming in, new skill sets are being developed. We've got to be aware of those factors and the impact that they have on it. One of the other biggest threats for you and I is complacency. It is human nature to be complacent, or once we've reached a certain level, we kind of plateau. And one of the biggest threats that I see in when I'm interviewing potential candidates and so on, they have become complacent. In other words, they've never really expanded their horizons. They've never really expanded their skill set. They've never really expanded that value proposition that they bring. So those are some of the aspects of the analysis that we do. Okay, next slide, please. So developing your plan. We've got the analysis, we've got the objectives, the strategies, the tactics, and the control. So you want to analyze the current market for your skills. All right. Is there a market? We already talked about it. There is definitely a market. No question about it. The objective, easy objective. I want to be employed, right? Well, there's two objectives. There's actually three. One, you want to be employed. Two, you want to progress. And three, you want to make sure that you're constantly providing value to your employer, because that is going to affect the way number two is in your progression and so on. The strategies. What specific things are you going to do that'll get you to that final goal? The tactics. The tactics, which we're going to talk about in the next slide, involve four major things and how you apply the tactics to the four major components of your plan. And then the control talks about monitoring your success, making adjustments where needed, and how you and I adapt to the change. Okay, here are the elements. Implementing the elements of your marketing plan. These are the specific areas and the tactics in each area that you and I are going to employ, use, and develop. The first one is the product. And as a matter of fact, if I look back at my old marketing textbooks, and the four elements of marketing are product, promotion, place, and price. That's how a company markets itself. That's how a company markets its product. Well, guess what? That's how you and I market ourselves. So let's look at those more individually and more specifically. So if we take a look at the product, that's you. You're the product. The place, where, how, when, and the price. There is a price. Now, whether that price be monetarily, whether that price be socially, whether that price be lifestyle, there is a price to it. And these elements are exactly the same, but now we've transposed it to your career path. Let's look at the first one. Next slide, please. The product. Let's look at you. Okay? You are the product. You are what I want to buy. Now, I'm using that as a metaphor in the hiring process. What is your personal brand? If you think of a product and you think of a brand, something sticks out on your mind. Well, what's your personal brand? How do you want future employers to perceive you? What are the characteristics that are going to make you stand out? So when I see a brand, I recognize it right away. I recognize it. There's the brand. I know the characteristics of the brand. Well, the same thing applies to you and I. What do you want to attribute to yourself that when an employer looks at you, looks at your resume, looks at your background and so on, they are going to attribute to you, not to Dino, not to ACCES, but to you specifically, your own personal brand. Now, what makes up that personal brand? What makes up that product of me? And specifically, What makes up that product of me for the financial service industry? One, we talked about your technical qualifications. So you must have at least the bare minimum in technical qualifications, academic background. Two, your people skills, your relationship skills. How do you build relationships? How do you relate to people? How do you articulate your brand? How do you articulate to other people your message? Your commitment to your customers, your commitment to your employer, your commitment to yourself. If I say something, I want my product, Dino, the product of Dino, for you to remember that that product of Dino, when he commits to something, he does it. He communicates it in such a way that I am confident that he's going to keep his word. And honesty. I want my product to communicate to you that I am honest. You may not always want to hear what I have to say, but I'm going to be very honest with you. Flexible and adaptable. You have to be, your product has to be flexible. You have to be adaptable. As the financial service industry changes, and it's changing dramatically, I want my future employer or my employer now to know that I can adapt, that I am flexible. I can think on my feet and change. I don't want you to think of a product that becomes obsolete. As an example, a typewriter. I don't know how many of you have typewriters, but I used to have one. The company that used to make them, if they did not adapt, they're dead in the water. So how adaptable are you? What kind of things do you do to show me that your product, that you, is adaptable and you're flexible and you're open to change? Dedicated. I know if I buy a certain product that sticks out in my mind, it's going to do what it told me it was going to do. So I am dedicated to that brand. The same thing with yourself. I want you to feel that you've got my dedication, you've got my reliability, and so on. These are all qualities or behaviors that you want to emulate and portray to a potential employer. That makes up you as a product for me. And I don't mean to depersonalize this, that we're objects. We're not. I'm just trying to present it in a context that helps conceptualize it, that will help you start structuring this plan. Next is the place. Where am I going to focus my attention? Thank you. Where am I going to focus my attention to obtain employment? What are your physical locations? Although nowadays, with everything that's been going on and the rapid change and virtual and so on, the physical locations really don't matter as much. That may change, but at this point in time, when we talk about physical locations, am I in the city of Toronto? Am I in Northern Ontario? What province am I in? Where physically am I located? What you do want to keep in mind, though, as the interview process begins, mobility may become an issue. Again, now not as much as before because of the advent of virtual and so on, but again, where? Toronto. Toronto is the financial service center of Canada. It is one of the leading centers actually in North America. So you do want to take a look at what the physical location. Where will you make yourself available? And when will you make yourself available? Do I only want to work? My place is only in Toronto and I only want to work 9 to 5 with a 1 hour's lunch and 15-minute breaks and so on. Well, if that's your space, your place, you may want to think about that, but you've got to conceptualize that. How are you going to make your services available? So now how are you going to, once you've determined where and so on, how are you going to tell me where you are? Are you going to use sorry, let me just go back a second. When we talk about the place, do you want to work from home? Do you want to work from a call center? Do you want to look at a branch opportunity? Do you want to look at a wide variety of locations that are available? And then how are you going to communicate that to me? Dino, I want to be able to work from home because I have other obligations and so on, and I have the skill set that provides with the discipline that I need, that I'd like to work from home. So that's my place. Or Dino, you know what? I like to work maybe in a call center. Or Dino, you know what? I like to work actually in a retail branch environment, whatever that looks like going forward, because I like the interaction of people when obviously this pandemic is over. And how are you going to make yourself individually go through some type of placement agency? How are you going to promote the place where you want to be? Some type of, as ACCESS helps out with programs, bridging programs, and so on. Next slide, please. So we've got the product, we've got the place, promotion. This is probably, as far as I'm concerned, one of the most important P's in those 4 P's of marketing. How are you going to make me know that you are available and want to be employed? How are you actually going to do this? One word, you're going to promote yourself. So how do I do that? There's many, many conventional methods of doing it. And I love the conventional methods of promoting myself and so on, but I'm also a big believer, and it goes back to my adaptability and so on, I'm also a big believer in promoting myself through unconventional methods. So the conventional methods of promoting yourself, obviously your resume, social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, all whatever, all the rest of them. Job fairs, now we do them virtually, but the financial industry actually does an extensive amount of job fairs with the colleges, the universities, with organizations such as ACCESS and so on. The one that I like, telemarketing, picking up the phone, making phone calls, cold calling. The one that I like the most, and again, because of certain constraints right now, it's a little bit more difficult, but once we return to semi-normal, is networking. You have got to get out there. You've got to get your name, your face, your product out there. The more people you speak to, the more people that know who you are, the more people that you promote yourself to, the higher the odds of being successful. The higher the odds of being successful, the more people you promote yourself to. All of a sudden today, I've promoted, I'm not sure, I think we have 40 participants onto this webinar. I've gotten my product out to 40 people who did not know what my product was yesterday. The more I promote myself in a networking atmosphere, the higher the chances are. Now, when we talk about networking, you know, the first thing you think about networking, well, okay, I'm going to go to job fairs and I'm going to network with financial people, or I'm going to join in a LinkedIn page with financial group. You've got to think outside the box. Anyone that you can promote yourself as a potential opportunity. Very quick story I'm going to tell you. One of my students didn't know how to promote himself, and he just kept going to these job fairs and so on. What I said to him, I said, where do you live? And he lived in a condominium. He says, so every condominium corporation has a board of directors. Yes. Have you ever sat in on any of the board meetings? Well, no, I never really thought about it and so on. I said, well, go sit in and introduce yourself in one of the board meetings. He went in and so on. One of the board members happened to have been the daughter of an executive vice president of the financial service industry. She had nothing to do with banking. She just happened to sit on the board of directors for the condominium corporation. He started up a conversation with her. They hit it off. That board member, next week, then when she saw her father, or it could be her mother, doesn't matter, says, you know what, Dad, I just met a very interesting individual who's looking at getting into the financial service industry. Here's his name. Do you mind if you give him a call, or can I have him give you a call? She had nothing to do with banking. She wasn't in the banking field. She sat on the board, but her father or her mother was. So anyone can be an opportunity for you to promote your product. And that's the way we've got to think about promoting this product. You've got to think outside of the box, okay? And that's an unconventional method. Now, again, because of the circumstances, it's difficult, but don't be afraid virtually. Your local business associations, cultural groups, your ratepayers associations. Get your product out there. Promote yourself to it. You're selling yourself. Now, people think, well, selling it could be considered a dirty word. No, it's not. Selling is not a dirty word. By promoting myself and showing the value that I can bring, you're telling someone how you can help them with what you bring to the table. That tweaks an interest. That gives them an opportunity to listen more, and it gives you an opportunity to promote that value to them and create a positive image that you're going to bring that value. I'm going to promote myself that I am going to bring value, and I'm going to bring value. This is why, because A, B, and C, and so on. The next one, and the final P, is price. When we think of price, first thing we think about is the monetary value. Every skill set that you and I have has a price to it. Yes, monetarily. How much money is this worth? What am I going to get paid? Am I willing to accept this price for what I bring to the table? Are you willing to pay me this price for what I bring to the table? You've got to keep in mind, besides the monetary value, and it is very, very important, there's another price that you have got to keep in the back, actually not in the back of your mind, you've got to keep it in the front of your mind, is the price that you're paying to invest in the time, the strategy, and the tactics that are needed to help you be successful. And I'm going to be quite honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, that non-monetary price can be very, very expensive. You've got to make that commitment of time, you've got to make that commitment of effort, and you've got to make that commitment of dedicating yourself to being consistent and keeping at it. And that has a price to it. Unfortunately, it could involve a social price. It could involve a friendship price where you can't spend as much time with friends and so on. But you want to consider all that. On the monetary side, and this goes back to the analysis, what I'm looking for in regards to a salary or a monetary reward, is it competitive with what's happening in the market? You will have analyzed, done your research. What I bring to the table, not so much as will you pay me for what I bring to it, but when I'm looking at a monetary or a price in regards to my product, is what I bring to you worth the value that I'm looking for? Or is what I bring to you worth the value that you're willing to pay for me? One other component of the monetary price, some of the rewards are not on the monetary, the actual dollars that we get. The experience that's obtained, that has a price. The exposure that we obtain, that has a price. The connections that I make, that has a price. The potential future, that has a price. Make sure we do our market research. There's a lot of information that takes those factors in pricing in regards to the financial service industry. How does your skill set rank in that matrix of price, of value? And you may have to sacrifice something for the long-term benefit of that price. Just as a footnote, the banks, the financial service industry in Canada are very, very competitive. The monetary rewards that they pay, what we're seeing in regards to price, and this again goes to adaptability that we talked about before. You would think that as large institutions, their compensations were set. Well, as a matter of fact, the price for your skill is becoming more and more variable. It's becoming more and more performance-based. So the value that you bring is going to be determinant on a variable factor of what you're paid. And there's many different methods that they use right now. So are you adaptable? Are you flexible to accept that? Is that a price that you're willing to pay? Those are the kinds of things that you want to think about. And is it realistic? And there's a ton of information, but you will find the Canadian banks, although we are very, very big here in Canada, there's not very many of us. They talk to each other. They know what talent is worth. They know what everyone brings to the table. So doing the research, adding the value, and how your value justifies that price is very, very important. Okay, just to recap, we talked about the importance of the marketing plan, the roadmap to success, the SWOT analysis. What are my strengths, my weaknesses, my opportunities, my threats? Develop your plan. Monitor it, watch it, change it if it has to be changed. Implement those 4 Ps: product, place, promotion, price. And finally, execute it. Do it. I think one of the running shoes companies, their logo is just do it. You've done all this work, you've done all this preparation, execute. And you are going to be disappointed at times. There's no question about it. Adapt to it, become flexible, change it, tweak it, and execute. I hope I've been able to provide a little bit of insights into the financial service industry, how to market yourself, how to promote yourself, how to be successful in obtaining employment. I wish you all much success. Take advantage of the great services of ACCES and so on. And I hope to one day be working as colleagues together. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dino. We are going to be able to take your questions now. So if you have them ready to go, you can start putting them into the Q&A tab. And I can see that there's one question there. How do you effectively value proposition for yourself?
Good question. Monetarily, there's all sorts of matrices that you can do research on. So 10 years of experience, I'm just using numbers, 10 years of experience in the financial industry is worth X number of dollars in salary and so on. Besides the matrix, I think the easiest way of putting a value to your skill set is how much can you bring to an employer or a market segment. So let me give you an example. Dino, I can grow the business by 10% above the standard growth of the financial service industry. I'm just throwing numbers out, okay? So if an average salary is 50,000, I think then I could be at least worth 55,000. Okay, you've got to put a value on what you bring specifically to the goal. To actually put that dollar value, you can use the matrices and so on, but it's just a starting point. Ask, what does a client advisor begin salary at? Well, okay, if you go onto their web pages, you can see, well, an average client advisor makes X number of dollars. Well, I can bring this, and this in value, so I think I'm worth this, and this. Or if an average client advisor makes X number of dollars, well, when I did my SWOT analysis, I think there's some weaknesses that I have to work on. So I may have to take, or I may have to pay a price of accepting a little bit less. Okay. And there's no hard and set rule, but the more you can demonstrate a value to me, the more that me as an employer can monetize that salary. So don't try to think about it, well, okay, I've got this skill, so I should get $10,000. Think of it as, I'm going to be able to provide you with this, and this. And then the employer will figure out, and you come to an agreement of what that is worth. And this is the other thing. We talk about adaptability and flexibility. Try not to think, what I find with a lot of my students is they think very, very structured. Well, it's not very, very structured. So you don't want to say, well, okay, I want this position, this is what I want to make. You can't think of it that way. You've got to be flexible in that.
Thank you, Dino. So we do have a few more questions in the Q&A tab here. I have over 30 years of experience in a completely different industry. How do I convince them that my acquired skills are transferable to RBC?
Okay, first of all, you don't want to convince me of anything. You don't want to convince me that you have the skills or that they're of value. What you want to show me is the value that the skills that you've acquired are what I'm looking for. And how do you have to communicate that they are transferable. You communicate them in such a way that they bring value to what the position is. So as an example, one of my students, they were never employed in the financial service industry. They were in the logistics business. They scheduled and organized logistics and movement and so on. They wanted to get in the financial service industry. So I said to them, okay, what kind of things did you do? Well, I prepared schedules. I made sure that shipments went out on time. I followed up to make sure that the customer got their shipment and everything was correct. How do I translate that now into a position of it? Let's say, assume a financial advisor in the banking industry. Well, okay, so you prepared schedules to ensure that the logistics were executed, correct? So the skill set there is you were organized, correct? Did you have to be organized? Yes, I had to be organized. Otherwise, I'd have things going all over the place. Well, okay, so let's translate that now as a financial advisor. Do you think a financial advisor has to be organized to prepare their day before they see their customers? Yes. So the skill set is the ability to organize. So I took a skill of what I was doing with something that had nothing to do with the financial service industry, and I translated it into, well, financial advisor is going to have to know who's coming in today, and they're going to have a good scheduling skill set to put their appointments in order to make sure they're not overlapping and so on. So there's the skill. The organizational ability is the skill. You translated it over. The other thing she said to me, well, I also make sure I follow up with the customers to make sure that their order was received on time, and if there was anything else that we can do for them as well. So what was that? That's customer service. So I took the skill set of customer service. Do you think a financial advisor has to have the ability to service their customer and provide the service good, fast, efficiently, and exceptional? Yes. What did you do when you spoke to the customer and there was something that didn't quite materialize or didn't quite go right? Did you have to make it right? I did. And how did you do that? Well, depending on the circumstance, I had to be able to think very quickly how I can satisfy the customer. Same thing, the financial advisor. Do you think everything goes perfect with the customer? No. Do you think you're going to ever have to make it right? Yes. Do you think you're going to have to do it while you're on your feet quickly? Yes, because the customer wants the answer right there. So there's the skill set. The skill set that you were applying over here, to be able to satisfy the customer, adapt to what the customer needs. In your logistics business, it's the exact same thing. So Dino, because I was able to think quickly to satisfy the customer, provide them with the exceptional service, I take that skill set and I apply it exactly to my client when they're sitting in front of me as a financial advisor. Everyone's got a skill set. It's how you apply it to the position that you're looking for is what's important. And the key to that is understand what the needs of the position are, and then just transfer it over. Does that make a little bit of sense?
Thank you, Gino. Next question here is, what kind of security clearances do banks conduct on candidates?
Okay. They do background checks. Again, it depends in the area of the bank. So they will do a credit check. They will do criminal checks. They will do, depending on what you're going to be doing, they may do well, they want to make sure that you're legally able to work in the country. They will, again, they will check for criminal records. They will check your credit. They will check your references. And then if you become more specialized, there are other special background checks that they do with the local police forces, whether it be the OPP, the RCMP, sometimes with Revenue Canada and so on. But that's as you get more and more senior. The basic ones are they will do a credit check. They will probably do a background check in regards to any outstanding criminal charges or anything like that. Also, the one other thing that they will do, and you should disclose it, any potential conflicts of interest. So if you're doing any other things that may conflict with your responsibilities or with your position. Okay.
Sorry about that. I was trying to unmute myself. Where did we leave off here? Oh, yes. A lot of positions are asking for Canadian experience. What is the best way to enter the industry without having that?
Okay. Yes, Canadian experience is very, very important. No question about it. However, the demographics of Canada are changing with new Canadians coming in and so on. The one way of overcoming that is, and it goes back to positioning of the value that you bring. The Canadian demographics are changing. The banks are aware of it. Cultures are changing, and the banks are specifically focusing on certain cultures or certain sections of the province and the city and so on with the different backgrounds, different cultures. The way to overcome that is stress the value that you bring from another culture to the position that you're applying for. So as an example, certain parts of Toronto, we have a huge East Indian population. The banks are specifically looking for individuals from that type of culture. So although you don't have Canadian banking experience, you bring in experience from that part of the world. Again, it comes back to showing me the value. So Dino, you're right. I don't have Canadian banking experience. However, I know that the Royal Bank is heavily focusing on the East Asian community or the Pacific Rim community and so on. Coming from that background, I have a good understanding of how normal business is done in those communities. And I'm very confident that I can bring that value and what's the word I'm looking for? I can help the customer feel comfortable. And I can understand that customer because of what the background that I bring of that culture. So it makes it easier for me to provide the services to that market. And as a matter of fact, the banks, all the financial industries are looking specifically for that. Another good example is in our youth. The bank are really, really focusing in our youth. Well, guess who we're hiring for our youth? Young people that have no experience. That's who we're hiring. Another area as an example that we're really focusing on is we talked about wealth management. Well, there's a lot of foreign money coming in, a lot of new Canadians coming in with money. Some of our wealth advisors who don't have experience in banking that we're hiring are from those cultures. We can teach them the technical background and so on. But again, it comes back to what do I bring because of the background that I have that melts into the position that they're looking for. And that's the only way you can overcome that. Show me the value. Don't tell me or don't think of it, this is what I don't have, but think of it as this is what I do have and link that what I do have to the position that I'm asking about.
Thank you. I don't see, oh, there's one more question here just now. Okay, so references. When employers ask for references, people who are new to Canada will not have any references in Canada. What can they do in that case?
Okay. How can I? Everyone should have references. Remember we talked about networking and doing your research beforehand? There are many, many social clubs, many, many faith-based organizations that you can become a member of. There's your ratepayers association, your condominium boards, your social clubs, and so on. Don't necessarily think of a reference. Well, okay, I'm applying for a banking job, so I've got to find a banker. Well, I haven't been in Canada long enough to know any bankers. I've only been in Canada for the last 6 months, 8 months, whatever. However, I am a member of this social club or this faith-based club, and I have really gotten to know the president of that club and so on. So it goes back to you've got to expand your network. That's how you get the references. That's how you build that network. Now, ideally, obviously, you would want someone in the financial industry or someone pertaining to that role. But for you Canadians, it's very, very difficult. So if you haven't done your homework, if you haven't built your network and so on, it's even harder. So build that network so you've got something. Some of the references that I've used in the past and some of my students have used in the past have nothing to do with banking, have nothing to do with the financial service industry. They're small business owners in their community. They're faith-based leaders. They're presidents of the social clubs that they participate in. So a wide variety, but you've got to build the network.
Thank you, Dino. Yes, as important as it is to build your own network, I'll quickly help answer that question as well. So if you are looking, if your employer is looking for employer references, you can definitely give them references from your previous employer in your home country. They can always set up a time to speak to them, or they can speak via email, or you know, they're always able to speak to them as well. So it's totally okay for you not to have employer references in Canada.
Absolutely.
So that does bring us to the end of our discussion today. Dino, is there anything you'd like to add before I move forward?
I just want to thank everyone that was on the call. I want to thank Sonia, yourself, and ACCES. I hope that we've been able to bring some value to it. Keep positive, keep at it, grow that network, promote yourself, and so on. And I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you again very much.
Thank you very much, Dino. I'm just going to quickly close off with some comments here. If you are interested in getting started with your job search, please call your closest ACCES location and someone can start helping you with your job search online. And check out our website and see what's up next by accessing our events portal. And if you are interested in improving your English conversation skills, you can join our Talk English Cafes online as well. Our next RBC webinar coming up is called Proven Personal Branding Strategies for a Successful Career in Canada, and that is being held on May 10th. And our next ACCES webinar is how to budget your first 6 months in Canada, which is going to be brought to you on May 18th. So go to our website and look for these webinars in May, and you can register for them as well. And for people who are pre-arrival and are have your PRs but have not landed in Canada yet, you can email cec@accessemployment.ca so they can start helping you with your job search before you land in Canada. And please stay in touch with us on our social media to find out what's happening here at ACCES. Follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you very much all for joining, and a very big thank you to Dino as well. Please note that you will get a recording of this webinar sometime today. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.